I'm glad. So do you see this now?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, perfect.
great. So it is part two, and welcome again. And you know me. These are the pictures that you didn't see. I wanted to highlight this because we had a question about these programs that I mentioned. So the Fulbright A's, 5 years to apply, and you can bring back all these different wonderful aspects of different cultures into your classroom much more vividly than you would from a book or even the internet. So it's a really great advantage if you can do that. Okay. Yeah, this was maybe the best way to be doing this. So I'm having trouble with the with how to move along in the presentation. Apart from, okay. So our agenda, there's like a delay. Our agenda looks like this. And you've seen this, mix and match. And now, why NetQuest? As a review, it's a way to have learners discover and reflect on issues that you question as a class. These are more memorable, they're more engaging, and ultimately more valuable for the student. If you think of project-based learning or a flipped classroom, it's very similar. The only difference I can think of right now, since I have the training in project-based, is that you don't have students in the classroom actually making things. If you do a web quest that's 100% or nearly 100% online, then they'll be doing things at home or be sharing things virtually. All right. So obviously, you're all here to find out more about how you can do a more elaborate co-planned NetQuest. I highlighted the co-plan because you can't be doing this alone, because there's so many things that you have to think about when you're doing a project like this cross-curricularly, that you need input from the people that you are sharing their lesson plans or their unit plans. Now, I know that in some schools, collaboration among teachers may be difficult just because of the teacher themselves or the scheduling or just how the administration feels. But however you can navigate all that, it's just better to have this a co-plan process. Just a review of what we did last time. You obtain your plans, you figure out an anchor, and then you figure out a theme that those subjects would cover. In my case, I'm a middle school teacher, so ELAs, math, social studies, and science are the main foci. But you can also add something related to PE, since it's related to health, for example, or art, because you're trying to show things visually. So all those things can be included in your planning. That art piece can go with the end product because you want students to show things. Then there's assessment and lesson planning and the platform you want to use. Okay, so for today, the science and math are what we're going to focus on. Similar to ELA and social studies, we look at the learning target. In science, it happened to be determining acids and bases in the pH scale. So we were thinking last week that we might do like a Mexican focus. So maybe Mexican food could be, so to speak, on the table pardon the pun, to look at acids and bases from a scientific point of view. In math, they are interpreting distribution data on a dot plot. So looking at pay gaps among genders and people from different backgrounds could be looked at. And this is more of a visual representation of the grid that I made for planning. I moved these pointers here over to focus on science and math. So you have the standards there, and the theme is carried on. So Mexican tacos could be cooked, and looking at the acids and bases of ingredients that are there, like lemons and limes. Where do they fall? So that's related. And then, so this kind of mood board that I created for social activism, I changed it a little bit just because things change. And once you examine a different aspect of your topic, you can always change it. Here, we were true to social activism, but then I added things like the pay gap among genders and different people of well, different cultures, and also added more current activists like Malala. Before we had Cortez here, that was part of the social studies. But you can easily include her story as well to keep it more current. In terms of a science adaptation, I like what I found on BrainPop. This is just one example of what you can use as a tool. Right now, their services are free, but I think when the school year comes, they're going to start charging. But my point is there are a lot of resources out there that you can avail of and still have a very good lesson. I chose these because there's a game associated with acids and bases on BrainPop having to do with pH. And here, a more simplified version, when you start out teaching the pH scale, BrainPop has a contained lesson of what you can do to teach your students how to look at acids and bases and set certain foods on the scale. In terms of ELL teaching, things need to be a little bit more visual, and you're building background knowledge for them. And you want it to be accessible as well. In terms of math, the same things apply. On the same vein as the taco example, you can include recipes that they can make at home, but also have them read about taco-related subjects. For example, I found this article on food trucks. And why food trucks? Well, I found out they make a lot of money. And students can probably relate to maybe a relative of theirs who might own a food truck or something like that to spark a conversation with that person. So again, this type of article draws on their own background to create interest. In the article, it explains how much you make, how much the investment might be. All these could be related to math as you have them graph the information, for example. To lower the effective filter, there are two articles that I saw in News ELA or News ELA related to avocados. And of course, avocados is part of Mexican meals and culture and tacos. And so there are two articles here, well, the same article, but in two different languages. So you're going to have those as options. Going back to this continuum, I just kept one slide from that continuum. I highly recommend using this link from Dr. Collier to make your instruction a little bit more informed as to how you're going to phrase and ask your ELL students to produce language. Just as a quick overview, because I think it's just very interesting. When you have an entering student, you know that they rely mostly on pictures for understanding, and they can retell things using gestures. You know, it's they're learning a different language, but they are probably very fluent in their own language at their age, so they can describe things with gestures. As you teach them, then, an entering student, I would have them like push their comfort level a bit and demand things that are more emerging. So you can use picture clues and initial letters to sound out and predict what's happening in the text. So that way they're still in that proximal zone of learning, and they can reach higher on that ladder or this continuum. And I also want to emphasize that here, the retelling in the transitioning level of stories is a very good way for them to recall what they've heard and what they've read. But make sure that you don't force them to do very complicated sentences, because their capacity is just within the simple sentence range. I would also talk about more country-specific and culturally relevant scenarios that include maybe artifacts and things that they would know as a Muslim child or a Latino person. These are, in West Africa, these are the cultures that are present in my classroom. So I try to include as much of that as possible, to the point of asking their parents, okay, what do you have that might be interesting, like a folk tale in your country? And of course, Google has a lot of searchable images that you can use for free to get that picture and visual richness that you need in lessons, especially for beginning ELLs. So that slide actually encapsulates everything that I do as a ELL teacher. And now I'm trying to apply it to other curricula. So let's get started with creating this net quest. So I want to remind you that you're choosing your product, and you assess, and then you do the lesson plans. This was the end product list that I put together. Many of these items, like the slides and podcasts, can be done on Adobe Spark. So I had a couple questions from people who said, "What's Adobe Spark?" Oh, a couple people waiting. What's Adobe Spark? Well, if you go on their website, you can sign up to be part of their community, and you can do different things like graphics for your social media, websites, these short videos, and a bunch of other things like posters even. If you want to do a short video, this is a quick demo. You just click it, and again, you have some choices. Okay, they have templates here. What I like, let's see, is that they have templates for different ways of telling a story. If we can focus on that right now, you guys can explore this however you want later. But this video option goes a little bit deeper. So you put your title in there, for example. You can always change it later. And you can pick from a story template, like promoting your idea. I particularly like the hero's journey here. It's kind of similar to show and tell. You can teach a lesson with these. You can also make your own. You can invite someone to do something. If we go to hero's journey, pick that one. They have several prompts for you. This is a quick video before the prompts. It's only a minute. It's worthwhile to play it to show you how to move things around. You could always reference this video so you don't get confused, or if you do get confused. I think it's really easy to save slides and create slides, move words around, change the template. Right, and you can also add music and your own narration. You can also add music that's already recorded, or you can upload yours. And you can preview at any time the work that you and your students have created. You can share them, and I think it's a really good tool. Okay, and so when you do this, there are prompts. Remember, we're using the prompt that asks to tell a story. So you set it up like a hero's journey, and it tells you, like, tell us about a hero in the world before the quest begins. Like call to adventure, what was that like? You can add the photos and everything. What was the challenge? And then the climax of the story, and finally the resolution. Of course, you're going to want to expand this a little bit, so you can just add a screen and move it around as you want. So that's pretty much how I taught my students to create their videos, which we saw last time. Pretty straightforward, and I'm glad to answer any other questions that you might have. Oh, by the way, in the eighth month module that I taught for the NYC Men Teach, we documented the teacher's journey. The teachers were my students, so I asked them to collect pictures and data from before the strategy that I gave them and after, to compare students' reactions. This is a really good way to show the videos that you can make, showing the way that you applied a strategy and how it worked, what your thinking was, in less than 5 minutes, in less than 3 minutes. So those teachers really had good things to say about using Adobe Spark for their presentations. All right. So yeah, so back to this. The rubric for your web quest or your net quest looks very similar to this. You can find other resources. I searched around for the best one, and it seems like this seems to be the best rubric to use. It starts with the overall aesthetic, which, you know, sure, you can draw students in, but I wouldn't make that my first criteria. I think more substance would be a better way to start. I'm trying to link to that. Sorry. I wanted to get to that rubric to show you a bit more. Looking at the time, I think we're just going to focus on the types of net quests there are. Now, there are different types, obviously. The one I'm going to show you is a combination. There's a classic type of net quest that has 5 or 6 stages. There's a treasure hunt type of net quest that's more of a gamified approach. And then there's micro-learning, where you can chunk uh, different learning modules together and put them on like a website. And then the other one is a differentiated learning. As an L teacher, I know that there are different levels of entry into a lesson. So I like to use the 3-tier system where the first level or the first stars would be for beginners, and the middle level would be what your standard might be, and then the third level worth 3 stars would be for someone more advanced or a student who really is into the topic. Now, the system of stars is basically a way to reward students and maybe have them become incentivized to do things that are higher up on the scale. For example, if you say, okay, this whole unit is going to be 12 stars, right? So you have them look for different levels that equal up to 12. So doing 4 level 3 stars would get them to 12, but obviously they're going to be more challenged by that. And I'll show you how that works on the Google sites. The scaffolds are also here. I put links to them. Let's see if they work. So the scaffolds would be something like this. There's presentation outlines, like a play. If you're going to do a play, there's a template for that. You can explore that later. And there's also like a transformation scaffold. For example, these are to help provide or assist learners in transforming information. So like a Venn diagram in order for them to understand things that are similar and things that are different between 2 different things. And all these different types of templates, I think, would help you as a teacher get your students to produce a bit more. Okay, and another type of NetQuest is like info bundle. You have all this information bundled up on a website, for example, that a student can go through at their own pace. I was thinking this would be the best type for teacher PDs or continuing education for teachers who just want to know the information and get through it at their own pace. Okay, so we're right on time. This is the Google Sites. I wanted to do this because I never had experience using Google Sites. And I can tell you from my experience that it's a pretty awesome tool that Google invented, or maybe some teacher who invented it for their needs. But it has everything you need to put together a really cool site. You can see that the pages are up here that you can drop down. The navigation is where you're going to spend a lot of your time when you create this. I want you to especially note that in each of these folders or each of these pages, there's a teacher's note section. So when you get into the example, you'll know that in mission, for example, or in roles, there are teacher notes there. You can hide these later. Suppose you want to use this as a template, which is completely fine. But you don't necessarily want to have your teacher's notes there for students to look at. You can hide them. They'll still be there, but they won't be part of the navigation of the site. You can see there that there are sub pages like social studies and math, right? So now it's time to collaborate. I asked you to come up with some activist-related or activism-related sources that you can use to teach. You could go to Newsella articles, for example, YouTube, BrainPop Lessons. Nearpod Lessons has an amazing library. It's free right now, but at some point you might be asked to pay for certain parts of the library created by teachers. There's PBS Learning Media as well. and many, many others. Just looking at this PBS Media, you can see that it's set up like Use ELA, and you can see that there are different types of, different topics that you can choose for part of your lesson or grab them for the entire lesson. So that's a really good resource. Okay, so let's take a look. Great, so here it is, ta-da. You can see that the pages are here. You can play with this area, which took me a little bit of like, the learning curve was steep, let me tell you, on this, because sometimes I wouldn't see stuff that I wanted, but it's just a matter of scrolling down, right? You can insert a lot of this information here. Well, I'm so excited about this. I don't know where to start, but this would be like your home page. So this was the assignment. You're talking about social activism at the 6th grade level. You introduce it to your students. You can show some pictures of, what you mean about social activism. You're going to describe what this all is. You can describe it as a treasure hunt, a visual field trip. You can add different design notes to it, like how it was designed. Like there's different pages, for example. You can link these to the pages, so when the students click on them, they can be taken to the page. Well, let me see. Mission, because we're already on that page, the sign up page. You can add mission to it, right? And they'd be taken to that page through that link. You can introduce yourself. This was a video that I made quite some time ago, and I left this area here unfinished because I was just showing you how to set this up. It's not a finished product yet. And so the mission is basically the task that you want your students to undertake. We're doing activism, so show a little video on what activism is. Basically looking for local events or even international events that they could learn more from, not necessarily join if they're too young, but be informed. These important questions are woven into the different questions on different pages. So questions upon questions, like civil rights, like what is it? The importance of human rights and like gay rights and all these types of rights. I could have structured this differently. Maybe the civil rights, well, all these questions below here are applicable to all of these activism movements. You can show like a hero story of what it is that you want. Remember, the end product is going to be some kind of visual. So they have to know what a hero story is so they can go and think about, who do I know in my community that could be a hero, who could be an activist, who in the past maybe. Podcasts, posters, videos, presentations are all things that they could show what they know. Again, you're describing on this page what their task is. On the next would be their roles. So for example, this is the step-by-step that they have to take. Part of this project requires you to learn about different activists, for example. So start on this page and do the activities for this page. And then go to the social studies page and the STEM page. I combined them so there won't be a lot of pages. And then the resource page. Here's where I explain where the stars come in. Choose any of the activities in the star sections. 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars to collect like 12 stars. Okay, so let me explain how that works. 1 star would be watching these videos of different activists. I chose these on purpose in order to give a more broad range of what activism looks like. It's not only for one type of thing, but it could be spread out. I could have added like animal rights on here, environmental rights. It depends on what you want to be teaching. I left this purposely blank as the like an article that they want to read. I want you to insert an article here when you do the collaboration. The 2 stars would be a little bit more difficult, describing other activists. It's the same vein. Here's an article from ELA, like group grassroots activism. What could that be? So they go to that link and answer questions and submit it to you. 3 stars would be at even more higher level, right? Using these activists as guides to their own thinking about what they can do as an activist, learning by example. Let's take a look at the ELA page. This is a subpage of the page that I just showed you on roles. Okay, I purposely left this blank for you guys to think about what you can insert in here. 1 star section would be this, second would be here, and 3rd section would be here. This lesson came from Nearpod, and it's a self-contained lesson. I put it in the 3 star section because it's really like 42 slides all put together describing Malala and activism and how a student can be an activist, him or herself. Okay, so again, I left this purposely blank so that you guys can fill it in with your information that you've sourced. There's a drop-down menu, science and math or STEM, the same thing. There's different sections. Here's the brain pop acids and bases link that they can go to with instructions saying, watch the video and then submit to me. BrainPop has a way of embedding a quiz that at the end of it, the score pops up and then they can send you the score. I guess that's why they call it BrainPop, because everything pops up. Yeah, so again, structured the same way, so there's some reliability on format. There's some more activism on vocabulary, which is a really good resource as well. And I threw in the animal activists and space for environmental activists if students are interested in those types of activism too. All right. And in terms of resources, this is how you describe what they're supposed to be doing, like telling a digital story. So the second part of this project, the first part being learning about activism, is you creating a story of a local hero or activist in your community or an event or campaign. These resources can be used to create your final product. So I'm referring to these resources here. This could be a little bit more fancy or visually appealing, but I wanted to throw the links in here for you to see them clearly. For example, how to create a timeline. A timeline is key into the process of creating a story, obviously. So Adobe Spark is a good resource for that. You can go to this site that is a timeline maker. Voice recording, there's different ways to record voices right now on a smartphone. If they don't know how to do that, you can just instruct them to go to Google Play. Or if not, they can use Audacity. Audacity is a program that I use to record voice on the videos that you've seen, the ones that weren't done on Adobe Spark. The storyboard, PBS Learning Media has a storyboard. You can Google storyboards, some cost, some don't. I found that these interviewing techniques are very helpful. Let's go to one just as an example. Okay, so here, reception scaffolds. So basically how a person receives information. There are interviewing guides here, like different glossaries. Again, there's timeline. This is a very good site to begin your planning. At the beginning of this presentation, I said that this was a complicated process. You can see that it is. I'm trying to get back to the website itself. So you do need a lot of time to be able to put this together, and resources. But not a lot of money, because Google made it easy for you to put all this stuff together to reach your audience and still create a plan. And of course, we saw the Adobe Spark video here. In terms of evaluation, I kept that blank because in the teacher's notes, I'm letting you decide how to evaluate. But the web quest or the net quest has to have some kind of rubric, so you know that you have all the pieces together. So I included in the teacher's notes, here the teacher's notes, on the web quest or the net quest quality scale. Normally you can scroll here, but I think when it's active, you can scroll. So you can see that the task is authentic, and there's an open-endedness to questions. It's not like a yes/no thing. So I think this is a really good resource to check out when you think about planning your activities. All right, I have so many open windows. We're almost done. And the final product. You can show here examples of the final products. Like last time we looked at Hero Story and we saw students' examples. So very, very explicit on what you want. You can also say, okay, this was good, but then you can make it better or more appropriate for our lesson by adding these things. Again, the star system is here with the brain pop. I added using a type of grammar like adverbs, for example. Okay. I believe that's all the pages. Oh, the planning page would be here. It's like a calendar for them. I imagine this could go on for like a semester. Or if you have, you can pare it down for elementary, of course, for like a couple weeks. But it's meant to be a self-paced calendar where they can go and plan their digital stories. This is not the type of activity where you say, okay, this is a link and I'll see you in 3 months. No, you're constantly fielding questions for them because they will have questions on how to structure their work. And of course, you want to also check their storyline to make sure that it follows good grammar and things like that. So these are the instructions, and these are ways to present. Let's see. You can play around with this. I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun if you're really interested in knowing how to put this together. But right now, I'd like to share with you the collaboration links so that you can put in your collaboration. So I need to put this link on. the chat. It looks like this. And if I can find the chat, I'll share it with you. Okay, so what I want you to do is go to this file, and you'll see different choices depending on what you teach or what you're interested in. The reason why I did this is because a primary lesson is going to be quite different from a higher ed lesson, okay? So once everyone's there, you can put in the lesson that you created, or if you can think fast, you can put in some lesson that you found, like right now, that's related to activism. Okay, Catherine asks, how do you keep track of the stars a student earns? Is it just based on an honor system? I created different types of trackers so that you can have them fill out a form, for example, a Google form, to say which activity they did. You can send that out on a daily basis, which is my suggestion for sixth graders, because they forget the next day what they did. Or send out the same form every day. Need access to items on this sheet. Okay, let me figure out how to do that. Yeah, I thought I gave everyone access. So Professor Laura, is this the sheet that you were thinking? Because some people are already on it.
I'm on the sheet, but when I click on the links within it, it says I need access.
Oh. So I believe this is where you do that. So let me know if that's happening. So meanwhile, as you wait,
That work.
you can go and look for some resources. Okay, 2 down, 2 to go. Selena commented, awesome, this is great. Okay, so Sherry, middle school, I already did that one. Okay, so Hajia said it works for her. But Sherry might want to maybe reload or refresh. All right, so I did them all on this sheet. So you should have access to it all. And I'll let you work on these things. I'm monitoring the chat to see if you have any questions. And I'll give you some work time, like 5 minutes before we wrap up. So question, can you take the Google Slides presentation and turn it into an Adobe Spark movie? I think so. You just have to upload the slides onto Adobe Spark. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, awesome, okay. And of course, if you don't have anything, you can just take a look at the different types of pages you can put in, or different inserts. You can take a look at the themes that you can have. I just used the one that was there just to make it faster. So another comment. Seems like all links just show for 6th grade. Confused where to add the link. Okay. If this is the case, if it's only 6th grade showing, just use the 6th grade. I'm sorry for any technical difficulty. I was trying to make it differentiated for different grades. But for the sake of practice, why don't we just use whatever you have in front of you and just practice putting in information. Rowena said, I'm curious to where to add my link. Well, the link could be something like, here, I'm going to put it in the space. You insert, and you can either embed here a URL or embed a code. So I'm not sure what type of link you have. I'm assuming maybe from YouTube. Let's see. This is a YouTube adverbial clauses lesson. So we can embed that here. Right here, I'm just going to use this. Insert, embed, put it in there, and adverbial clauses shows up. Okay, so that's where you can start to put the things in. If you just want to add a link, add a text box, and you can drop a link right there. Okay, I think it looks nicer to have a an image to go with the link. Yeah, most people seem to be on the middle school one. Well, there's people on the primary one too, which is great. I hope I don't break my computer with all these windows I have now. So we only have 2 more minutes left, so I'll have you do this for like 30 more seconds, so that we can wrap up just in the nick of time. And of course, we can keep this collaboration going, and you can ask me questions as well on how you might create your own. This topic right now in activism is super important these days, and if you can get students to go beyond the pen and paper and become more activists by learning about other activists in the medium that they like to learn, I think we go a long way in our tasks as educators to educate the world about being activists during this time. Oh, the presentation slides. Sure, I can do that. Okay, there you go. So now you have everything. I kind of want to see what you guys did. Oh, great. So someone put in this environment movement. So that's really good, like Earth Day. It's really good. So it's working. It's working on the level of collaboration with other people. Okay. Um, so if you put anything in social studies, it might be here or not. Yeah, if there's any other questions, let me know. You can contact me directly as well. I'll leave this open for a little bit so you can play around with it. But of course, you can take a copy of it as well and use it for your own students. Professor Laura, did you want to add anything as we close? No? Yeah, if this went too fast for you, then I'd reference the video and also the slides. All right, so we're at 4:01. There's nothing else. I'll let you guys go and have a great day. I put my email there in case anyone wanted to get in touch with me. Of course, it's all over the presentation as well.